So first, we're going to start off by hearing from Governor Peter Shumlin, who will tell us a bit about how this program started and why the time for action is now. Then we'll be hearing from Sky Flanagan, who's the program director at Harvard Trans Sea Change. Sky is going to give us an overview of the center and some of the highlights from last year and what to look forward to for this coming summer. Then I will talk about the application process and scholarship opportunities. We're also joined by my colleague Rebecca, who will be helping with questions and answers, and we'll leave some time at the end for those to come up, for anything that comes up. So thank you so much for coming. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Sky, Peter Shumlin, excuse me, to talk about the program.
Thank you, Julian. Thank you. Welcome, Sky. I'm going to introduce Sky in a moment. Let me first apologize by being so dark. We had snow here in Vermont all day. The minute this webinar started, the sun came out. My office faces south, and when the sun comes out, I look dark. But one might argue that this is a bit of a dark time for those of us that have been working hard to move off fossil fuels and deal with this challenge quickly before it's too late. So maybe it's appropriate that I'm a little dark today. Hey, I'm delighted to be with you. I want to tell you just a little bit about why I'm so passionate about this summit and why I think it's so critically important now more than ever. As Julian mentioned, I've done a lot of things in my lifetime. My parents founded this educational organization, Putney, some 74 years ago. I helped direct it with my brother Jeff and lots of other great people. And I also did some time in public service. I had the privilege of serving as Vermont's 81st governor. When I ran for governor, I served 3 terms. When I ran for governor, it was the bottom of the recession. Historically, Obama was running against John McCain for president, just to put it in perspective. We were in a terrible recession. Everybody was focused on jobs. And one of the things I promised as I ran around the state of Vermont campaigning was that if you elected me, I would work as hard as I knew how to move us from coal and oil to renewables, wind, solar, and energy efficiency in an attempt to create jobs, reduce power bills, because I felt that bringing in coal and oil to a non-producing state like Vermont was frankly more expensive than what we could do if we moved to renewables, and make a contribution towards showing how a small state can make a difference in the journey that we must execute quickly. Anyway, if you flip to the next slide, we don't have too much time today, but the first bill I signed in the first election victory was a bill that gave me the power to implement many of the policies that I had outlined in the campaign. And if you flick to the next slide, we don't have time to go into how, why, and when, although I look forward to discussing that with the students at the summit this summer. But when I was done with 3 terms, Vermont was, according to the Union of Concerned Scientists, the #1 solar state in America. We had expanded solar by 11 times, wind by 22 times, and we had made huge progress in moving towards our goal of being 90% renewable by 2050. If you flip to the next slide, when I was finished being governor, I did not run for a 4th term. I ended up having the pleasure of doing some teaching and being a fellow at both the Kennedy School and the Harvard School of Public Health. And when I got there, I found Gina McCarthy was also there. And Gina McCarthy is one of the most extraordinary public servants I've ever worked with. When I was governor, she was the administrator, the head of the EPA under President Obama. We worked closely together trying to clean up Vermont's Great Lake, as we call it, Lake Champlain. And we had a good friendship. We were out one time talking and I think having a glass of wine, may truth be known. And historically, this was when, if you look at the next slide, it was when students were walking out of, it was the first Trump administration. The first thing they'd done, as you may recall, is withdraw from the Paris Climate Accord, the only nation to do that of all of the countries in the world. Now we've just done it a second time as of this past week. Students are walking out of school on Friday to protest climate, high school and middle school students all over the country. Greta was coming across to give her speech at the UN. And Gina, who is one of the most powerful people that I've ever worked with, in her South Boston accent, said something like, "Peter, don't you work with high school kids when you're not doing all this other stuff and we're not?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "High school students know that walking out of school on Friday is probably not going to solve our climate crisis. But they also know that they don't have the tools, the information, the knowledge, the resources, and most importantly, the collective wisdom from those that are making a difference to have the tools to actually make progress." Harvard has all of that. Let's bring them here in the summertime. We'll do an 8-day summit. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. And we can use Harvard's resources to get to the people that matter the most right now, which is our middle and high school students who are going to have to live through whatever the planet has left them as the gift of carbon and climate change and the challenge that lies ahead. So that's how this program started. And we've been running it ever since. The administrator for it and the person who really makes the magic happen at Harvard is Sky Flanagan. I'll tell you about her in a moment. But before I do, I don't want to ignore or gloss over where we are today in this challenge. What do we know? We know the world is burning up. Think of Southern California most recently, but almost every few weeks we can think of similar challenges around the globe. We know that it's having an extraordinary impact, that we're dealing now with the carbon that was emitted 20, 30 years ago. That was before China, which I just returned from China, was running around, mostly on bicycles before they moved to mostly combustion engines, same as India. In other words, we're getting little harbinger of what lies ahead in terms of challenges. There is no place more important, in my view, than the Harvard School of Public Health to prepare healthcare and other folks for the work that lies ahead. And Harvard Sea Change, which is what Gina McCarthy, after finishing the Obama administration, came to head up, and now is directed by a former Putney alumni, by coincidence, who went on our French language program when she was in high school, and Sky Flanagan, who is where the rubber hits the road with this program, really offer something that I think you can't get anywhere else, which is knowledge that you won't receive, even probably if you're at university. A curriculum that allows you to focus on very specific outcomes and still have the benefit of hearing from lecturers from across the university, all around Boston who are working on this challenge. And most importantly, a collective community of like-minded people who understand that they want to make this some part of their future before it's too late. So with that, it's a pleasure to introduce Sky Flanagan, who has been the Harvard director of this program for many summers, and will take it away. Thanks, Sky, and thanks so much for letting me join you today.
Thank you so much, Governor Shumlin, and thank you for everyone that's here today listening in, and for all of you that are going to be listening into the recording. We're thrilled to be here to tell you about this program and to share a little bit about why we think it is so special, and really hope that you will join us this summer for our 5th year of running this summit. So as Governor Shumlin mentioned, when him and Gina McCarthy came together with this idea, they brought it to my doorstep and said, "Sky, let's make this happen." And we did. And we have now educated hundreds of students, many of whom have gone on to study environmental related subject matters in college. We have a number of students that are now attending the Harvard undergrad. And I am continued to be blown away by what these students take out into the world. And so I'll share a little bit more about how we do that. But I want to start off by welcoming you to our school. This is the front entrance of the Harvard School of Public Health. We are one of 12 graduate schools at Harvard. And Harvard University is an incredibly special place. It was actually the first college in the American colonies. It was founded in 1636, so it's quite old, older than most cities in this country. And it has over 25,000 students enrolled across the different schools. We have nearly 20,000 faculty and staff that work at Harvard. And the Harvard library system holds more than 20 million books and 400 million rare items. It's actually one of the largest collections in the world, if not the largest. And we have, since we've been around since the 1600s, we have over 400,000 alum that are out there in the world. And we hope some of you will end up there as well. So if you can flip to the next slide. So our center, which is based within the School of Public Health, is called the Center for Climate, Health, and the Global Environment, also known as Harvard Chan Sea Change. And Harvard Chan Sea Change was actually originally started at the medical school nearly 28 years ago by medical doctors who were seeing patients and wanted to make sure that the medical community was prepared that climate change was not necessarily about far off glaciers and polar bears. While we love polar bears, it was going to be impacting the health of their patients and the communities that they serve now and into the future. So we spent many years really raising awareness, doing congressional briefings, making sure that people really understood the connection between climate change and health. And interestingly, now people are feeling it much more than they ever have. I am based in Southern California. I, witnessed that devastation of the LA wildfires recently, but as many of you know that are based in the United States, it doesn't just apply to California. The wildfire smoke traveled all the way to Boston a couple of summers ago, and it continues to threaten. It continues to threaten communities all over the world. Not to mention the other impacts, which are related to infectious diseases spread. With warmer temperatures, we're seeing different diseases pop up in places that have never been there before. We're seeing stronger and more severe weather events, which are leading to a variety of different health impacts. So we'll talk a lot more about that when you get to Harvard. But to introduce our center seeks climate solutions that provide a healthier and more just world today and a livable future for our children. So we convene researchers from across the disciplines at Harvard and beyond to tackle these complex climate challenges. And by evaluating climate solutions and making research accessible and actionable to decision makers and the public, we aim to improve the health of our communities today around the world. And so I just listed a few of our key leaders at the moment. As Governor Shumlin, mentioned, we have Dr. Mary Rice as our new director. She took over this fall, and she is an alumni of Putney's, which is an amazing full circle moment. And she is also a pulmonologist. She studies air pollution, and she has been working on environmental health issues for her whole career. I listed out a couple of our other key faculty members here, and I'll tell you a little bit more about some of the other types of speakers that you'll hear from, but you'll definitely be hearing from these folks if you join us this summer. Dr. Gora Basu he's our Director of Education Policy, and he's a primary care physician, and he really has a big focus on health equity and working with communities to make sure that they're getting the proper care. Dr. Caleb Dresser is a emergency medicine physician and a real expert in natural disaster preparedness, really working closely with clinicians and clinical settings to help support their climate resilience strategies. And recently joining us is Dr. Amruta Nori Sarma, who's an assistant professor of environmental health and an expert on heat exposure, among many other things. And we have now an additional core faculty of 12 people, ranging in expertise and discipline, along with an affiliated faculty list of over 55 people, all coming from different backgrounds. So we're really building our center to make sure that we have a variety of expertise to call on when we need expertise. And a lot of those folks will be joining us this summer. If you want to flip to the next slide, Julian. And I just wanted to take a moment to highlight our former director. Between Gina McCarthy and our new director, Mary Rice, we had Dr. Ari Bernstein, who is now at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, leading the Environmental Health Division. And he's working on a number of important issues, but any type of major toxic spill in the United States, he's involved with, and he's oftentimes a speaker at our event and has been a big supporter of this program. So I wanted to take a quick moment to highlight a few of the other types of speakers that we have. I mentioned that we have, a big variety of speakers from the School of Public Health. And we generally have over 30 speakers that come and talk to our students every summer. So I'm not going to be able to go into depth about each one of them, but I do want to take a moment to sort of share some of the caliber of these types of speakers. We always hear from Dr. Howard Koh. He was the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services for the United States under Obama, and a big professor of practice now at the School of Public Health, but a big supporter of this program. We also hear from folks like Francesca Dominici, who's a data scientist, and she is in the top 1% of cited scientists in her field. She's a total mover and shaker in the science field, and is always a big supporter of the program and comes and speak with us. We also have folks like Marcia Castro, who's an infectious disease expert. She does work all over South America and really on the cutting edge of mapping out where new emerging diseases might be threatening populations. And this year we'll have our newly appointed core faculty member, Vanessa Carey. She is the daughter of John Kerry, and she's incredible. She is the UN She's the UN Special Envoy, or excuse me, the WHO Special Envoy on Climate Change and Health, and is a professor at the School of Public Health, and runs an organization called Seed Global, where she trains healthcare professionals around the world, and is a really exciting person to join our center and to join this program. And then we bring in people from the outside, other types of folks like Jeff Sanchez, who is a politician in Massachusetts, a state representative who actually lives right where our school is based. And he can talk a lot about how policy is impacting different communities and how we need to be thinking critically about how, what are the ramifications on different types of communities and vulnerable communities, and making sure that we have just transitions. And then we also bring in TV personalities like Tevin Wooten, who is a broadcast meteorologist for NBC Boston. We also like to bring in a variety of young speakers. So we'll have young climate activists and young social media content creators who come and speak to the students. So we have a good variety. And then I should mention on top of that, this year, given everything that is going on, we'll have a big focus on what can we do without the federal government's support? So thinking through businesses and entrepreneurship and making sure that, you see that these economic opportunities are available when thinking about how to tackle the climate crisis. So that is just a little bit about some of our guest speakers. And I'm actually going to pass it back to Julian just for slide 11. So this next slide, so he can talk a little bit about the instructors and the type of folks that will be leading your different groups. And then you can pass back to me, Julian.
Thanks, Guy. Yeah, so every summer, Putney hires instructors to lead they're called action focus groups or seminar groups. Each student will choose one of these when they enroll in the program. And our instructors are incredibly passionate and experienced educators. They take time away from their busy professions and lives every summer because they really want to work with high school students who are interested in climate and public health. And they love sharing their knowledge and being mentors to our students. So they're really involved in all aspects of the program. They live on campus with our students, and they're fully participating in the whole day, leading activities, leading workshops, and leading the seminar time when they're facilitating that connection with the guest speakers. They have a lot of, some of them are doing doctoral studies in climate issues or medical science. Most of them have just extensive background leading groups of students or teaching in the classroom. So we definitely encourage you to take a look at their bios. We have them on the program website just to learn a bit more about them. They all have at least a bachelor's degree. Many have higher degrees than that, and many are actually working in fields related to climate and public health already. So great resources and really inspiring, amazing people. I'll pass it back to Sky to talk a bit more about the program.
Thanks, Julian. So this summer, we're going to be running our program from July 12th through the 19th. And we'll have grades 9 through 12 enrolled. And you can ask Putney if you have specific questions about your eligibility to enroll. But the theme of this year is channeling climate actions into climate solutions. And we decided on that theme because, as Governor Shumlin mentioned, this is the time we have to take action. And we're not going to be waiting, around for some government mandates to do so. We really need to be thinking about how can you as individuals come up with solutions to the problems that we're facing in our communities. How can you get involved in businesses or study areas in college that are really going to equip you to become leaders in this field, in whatever lane you pick, because as you know, there's so many different ways that you can channel your interests into climate solutions. And so the way we think about this is every student gets to pick what we call an action focus group. So it's the lens in which you view the content. And you might not, you're still going to get a variety of different information, but you'll get a little bit more in depth in this particular action focus group. So if you're more interested in the science, you might want to join the climate science group. If you're more interested in the business aspect or the entrepreneurship aspect, you can join the entrepreneur group. We also have climate communications, environmental justice, global health and environmental health, medicine and healthcare, and policy and advocacy. And each one of our leaders, which Julian had just went over, has a real expertise in some of this in these particular action focus groups. So they help you craft your learning around these different things, these different action focus groups. So one thing that is probably the most important piece of this summer program is that we want to make sure that you take what you've learned at Harvard and bring it back to your community. So all of the students are tasked to come up with what we call a community action plan. And we recognize that it's, you only have a week to do it. And so, it's going to be, it's a quick brainstorm and figuring out what kind of project you want to be involved with. But it's a really cool exercise. And we've seen, a variety of different ways that the students tackle this. Some people do it in groups, some people do it individually. You'll work with your instructors to figure out what works best for you, but you come up with some sort of plan or project that you're passionate about, that you want to bring back to your community. So we've seen incredible incredible projects where, some people propose that they don't have a lot of access to fresh food at their school. So, they want to propose a greenhouse for their school. Another, wants to make sure that there is more access to solar in their community. So coming up with a solar plan for their community. And then others, individuals that are really interested in actually getting out more climate messaging to their schools and their communities. So we had a student who was running the yearbook the next year, and he proposed that he integrate climate messaging throughout. So this is really meant to be something that you care about, that you can bring back to your community, and don't feel overwhelmed and intimidated by this. It's a really fun process, and we have an incredible support network to help you figure out what that is. And then on the last day of the program, our students present it to the whole group. And as I mentioned, it can be in groups, it can be individual. We work to make sure that we figure out whatever is most comfortable for the students, but it's a real shining moment of the program. And to see what the students come up with is really inspiring. And I'm sure you will learn more about it. And, maybe you have new ideas that you hadn't thought about, or, that it sparks some sort of other connection that you have. So it's a really amazing part of the program, and we really value it. And I'm so honored to see what people do with it after. It's really incredible. So beyond the academic side, which we're happy to go into more depth about, but we like to, scatter in a lot of field trips and learn outdoor learning experiences. So, we go and we visit the Museum of Science, and we utilize the other Harvard museums that are in the Boston area, and we do a tour of the Harvard campus. Our school is actually located in the Boston area. So Cambridge, the main Cambridge campus is located, Harvard University campus is located in Cambridge. But our school, as I mentioned, is huge. So anything that's medical related, like the Harvard Medical School, the Harvard School of Public Health, the Harvard Dental School, is over in an area called the Longwood Medical School. We're nestled in amongst all the other hospitals as well. But we want to make sure that students feel that connection to Cambridge. So we make sure that we go over to Cambridge and we do tours, we utilize the different museums, et cetera, and get to explore. And then in the afternoon, and beyond, kind of the learning aspect of it, we want to make sure that students are rejuvenating and nurturing their soul and their mind and their body. So we do fun activities like salsa dancing or yoga classes. There was a running group that was happening. And then every summer, a real highlight for the students is that we take a beautiful kayaking trip on the Charles River, which is right in between Boston and Cambridge. It's a really lovely way to see the city and just, let some steam off and have a good time with your peers. So it's always a real highlight of the program. And then I will close by saying one of the most important pieces to this program is really the connections you make there. I've heard, from so many different students that they felt alone in this fight, for lack of a better word, but alone in this space, whether they're coming from areas that aren't super supportive of climate action, but they come and they start to make these connections and build these bridges and build a community of peers that are also interested in climate change and are really passionate about making a difference. So, there is a real sense of community when you walk away from this program. And I'm always so inspired by it. And, I think that it's something that continues to make this one of such a beautiful experience for students. Is they build community amongst their peers, they build community with the speakers, with their instructors, and they walk away and feel like they can tackle something that actually matters to them. So with that, I will pass it back to Julian to talk a little bit more about the application process, but I will be around to answer some questions after that.
Thanks, Guy. Thanks for that excellent overview. So the application process is pretty straightforward. It's an online application, so you can go onto our website, you click the Apply Online button, you select the Harvard Youth Summit, and then you can start an application. You hold your space with a deposit, and after the deposit is submitted and your space is held for just temporarily, we ask you to write up an application statement and submit 2 teacher references. And we do this because we want to make sure everybody's a good fit. And it's great to learn a little bit about each student before they arrive in Boston. So it's a pretty straightforward process, but give us a call if you have any questions. We're always available to chat. We also have a scholarship program option. We have full and partial scholarship funding available. It's income-based, so you can check out the eligibility guidelines on our website, or give us a call if you have any questions about the scholarship application. The applications are due by March 15th, whereas the online application through our website is a rolling application. So we always encourage submitting an application as soon as you're available and you'd like to join the program. It's been a pretty popular program. This is the 5th year we're running it, so get your application in now. With that, let's see if we have any questions in the Q&A.
Hi. We don't have any questions yet. So if anyone does have questions who has attended this webinar, go ahead and drop them in there. But I was wondering, Julian, what age is a good age to attend this program?
Yeah, so all high school students are eligible to apply, currently in 9th through 12th grade, and we do accept 8th graders who we judge to be a good fit for the program. So if you're an 8th grader and you're really interested in studying climate and public health, please, submit an application, give us a call and chat, and we'd be happy to explore that with you.
Thanks. Sky sort of touched on this, but I was wondering, Sky, if you can go a little bit more into if anything will be different this summer in light of the new administration's rollback of climate policies in the US with what will be happening at the Harvard Climate Summit.
Yes, thank you. That's a great question and something I think that's on many people's mind of what are we going to do? what can we do right now when it feels like doom and gloom? And I will say we've been here before. This is the beginning of a period where there's a lot of big executive orders that sound very scary, but we will be really focusing in on how you can actually take action. And that's going to be happening at the local level. It's also majorly happening at the international level. And then also within the business community, there's so much momentum in terms of, the switch from fossil fuels to renewables, that industry is going to be leading the way. This ball is already rolling. It's not going to get stopped because of the scare tactics of the big federal government at the moment. So I really want to focus on what we can do and not worry so much about what is being rolled back. We'll obviously share, the realities of the situation and areas where there's challenges, but we're going to really focus in on, where there's real progress and how we can make a difference, and whether that be locally, internationally, with business communities, et cetera. We'll be really diving deep into that. And as I mentioned, we really want to make sure students understand that there's so many different lanes you can take to be part of the climate solution. You don't have to be a climate scientist. You don't have to be, someone that's necessarily someone out there, getting their voice heard by others. You can be a data scientist and make a difference. You can be a business person. You can be an entrepreneur. You could be a communicator. Like, there's so many ways to make an impact. And so we want to make sure students come and feel that they're figuring out what sparks their interest, what piece of this puzzle they can be a part of, and not focus on what they can't do. So we'll be having a bigger focus on that this summer.
And this summer might be more important than ever and special to find that community that feels the urgency and the desire to put things into action when you see the government is doing the opposite. Could one of you walk through like a day in a life and what the schedule looks like on the ground and how the flow of a day at Harvard Climate Summit would be?
Yeah, Julian, would you like me to do that?
Sure.
Or either one of us. So every day is a little bit different. So we want to try to mix it up as much as we can. But a typical day, you wake up, you go get breakfast and get yourself grounded, and then you head over to the School of Public Health, and you with your action focus group. And then you will likely hear from at least one action focus group speaker. So, a professor or a business person, a politician, or a communicator, based on whatever your interests are. And then, some days we also will have a keynote speaker, whereas some days it'll just be one speaker a day. And then you'll go out, you'll have lunch, and maybe you'll do some sort of outdoor activity, whether it be going and kayaking on the Charles, or going to a museum, or going and visiting, some sort of other related subject matter of, related to your action focus group in the afternoon. followed by dinner at either with your action focus group out or at one of the locations close to campus. And then we always have some like leader-led workshops those in the evening, which are optional. So, can be fun things like salsa dancing, or it could be, more academic, like viewing a movie together that's in a related field. And you have a debrief with your group at the end of the night. And so I'll pause there and see if Julian has anything else to add, but we really try to make sure that it's mixed, you have a mix of different things that you're doing every day, and also, really have time to absorb each activity. So that you're not walking away feeling super exhausted by the end of the week, but you're feeling really rejuvenated and excited.
Yeah, one thing I'll add that we always do at the end is we organize a Boston Harbor cruise with dancing and great music, just as a really like fun and memorable way to end the program before everybody heads home. So yeah, we try to mix in some really fun activities like that with all the academics, and more intense, serious materials that information we're discussing all week. So yeah. If anybody has any other questions, please feel free to give us a call at 802-387-5000. You can also email me at Putney, julian@goputney.com, and I'd be happy to chat with you if you have any other questions about the program.